I hadn't thought about the doll in years. Not until I went back to clean out my parents' old house after they passed. The attic was thick with dust and silence, boxes sealed with tape that hadn't been touched in over a decade. I opened one labeled Emily's room, and there she was, staring up at me with those same glassy, cold blue eyes. The doll. Her name was Clara. Not because we named her that, but because she told us. Or rather, that's what she told my sister Emily. That's what Emily said. It started when we were kids, around 1997. Emily was 8, I was 13. She'd found the doll at a flea market downtown, nestled between broken clocks and rusted toy cars. It looked like it belonged in another century. Porcelain face, fine blonde curls, a faded blue dress with tiny lace cuffs. I thought it was creepy from the start, but Emily was in love. She begged our mom to buy it. I still remember how pale the old vendor looked when he handed it over, like he wanted to warn us but didn't know how. The first few days were uneventful. Emily named her Clara, and they were inseparable. Tea parties, bedtime stories, even a tiny pillow at the foot of her bed where the doll would sleep. But then things got weird. I remember waking up one night to hear giggling, not Emily's voice. It was softer, higher, coming from the hallway. I thought maybe she'd left the TV on, but when I opened my door, the house was dark, quiet. The next morning, Emily said Clara told her a joke in the middle of the night. I laughed it off. Kids have wild imaginations. Then the doll started moving. At first, it was subtle. Emily would leave her on the shelf, but we'd find her on the rocking chair. Once she was on the staircase, seated like she was waiting for someone. I accused Emily of messing with me, and she swore up and down that she wasn't. I noticed something different in Emily's eyes. Emily looked anxious and scared. Then came the shadows. Emily said they danced in her room when the lights were out. Long, spindly shapes that didn't belong to anything. She'd wake up crying, saying Clara was talking to her about a girl named Clara Annette who had drowned in a bathtub because her mother was too sad to remember she was in there. That was the first time our parents really noticed something was wrong. Emily stopped eating. She stopped playing outside. The doll was always close by, sitting silently in a chair or resting in Emily's lap, her cracked lips twisted into that small, eerie smile. I'll never forget what happened the night before we finally got rid of her. It was raining hard. I woke up to the sound of screaming, Emily's voice, sharp and panicked. I ran into her room and found her standing on the bed, pointing at the doll on the floor. She moved, Emily said. She was on the dresser. She walked. Our parents came rushing in, trying to calm her down. My dad picked up the doll and said it was probably just a dream. Emily shook her head so hard I thought she'd snap her neck. Emily said the doll told her she had to come with her. My mom looked like she was going to cry. That was it. The next morning, my dad took the doll and threw her in a box in the attic. He told Emily Clara was gone for good, that she couldn't hurt her anymore. Emily got better, slowly. We never talked about the doll after that. Our family didn't do therapy or church or exorcisms. We just buried it under years of silence and moved on. Standing in the attic, holding the doll again, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Raw, prickling dread. Clara looked exactly the same. Not a scratch on her. Her eyes seemed brighter, like she'd been waiting. I know what you're thinking, that it's just a doll, that memories twist with time. But then I turned her over. There was something new scrawled in black ink on the bottom of her porcelain foot. It read, "She misses you, Emily." My hands went numb. I dropped the doll back into the box and slammed it shut. My first instinct was to burn it, but a sick curiosity stopped me. Instead, I brought it with me. I kept it locked in a trunk in my apartment for days, trying to convince myself it didn't mean anything. Then the giggling started again. Late at night, just past 3 a.m., I'd hear soft laughter. Once my TV turned on by itself, playing static. I unplugged it, but it happened again the next night. I called Emily. She lives in Oregon now, married with 2 kids. I didn't want to scare her, but as soon as I mentioned the doll, she went silent. Emily said, "She's still here. I still dream about her sometimes." In the bathtub. She's always drowning. I told Emily about the writing, the laughter. She begged me to get rid of it. So I did. I took it deep into the woods behind our old house, dug a hole 6 feet down and buried the doll in the mud. I said a prayer even though I've never been religious. For a few nights, everything was quiet. Then last night, I got a letter. No return address. Just a single page inside with childlike handwriting. It read, "You can't bury what's already part of you." I went outside to the spot where I buried the doll. It wasn't there, just an empty hole in the ground. Clara is back, and I feel like she's not looking for Emily anymore. She's looking for me. I've always had a weakness for old things. While most guys my age are into tech or cars, I spend my weekends elbow deep in dusty crates and forgotten shelves, hunting for relics of the past. There's something about antiques, the mystery, the stories etched into their scratches and wear, that fascinates me. That's how I ended up in a small antique shop tucked between a tattoo parlor and a bakery on a rainy afternoon in October. The bell above the door jingled softly as I stepped in. The scent of aged wood, old books, and lavender oil hit me like a nostalgic wave. The shop was cluttered in the best way. Lanterns hung from exposed beams, shelves groaned under the weight of brass trinkets and cracked porcelain dolls, and a dusty gramophone sat silently in the corner. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Then I saw it. A silver locket, hanging on a delicate chain, displayed in a glass case near the back. Its filigree design was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It looked handmade, intricate and old. Really old. The clasp was slightly bent, and the metal felt cold to the touch, even through the glass. "I'll take that," I told the shopkeeper, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel. The shopkeeper asked, "Are you sure?" I nodded. She shrugged but didn't smile. Then she said, "That piece has history. Be careful with it." I should have listened. The first week, nothing major happened. I wore the locket sometimes, just because it felt like it had a story to tell. It hung low, resting cold against my chest. It wasn't until I wore it to work one morning that things started to turn. I got a flat tire. No big deal. These things happen. But then I got sick. Really sick. Like fever dreams and night sweats sick. I spent 4 days in bed, tossing and turning, hallucinating faces in the corners of my room. Always a woman, always half-shadowed, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. When I got better, I chalked it up to the flu. Bad luck. Coincidence. That's what I told myself, but the locket felt heavier somehow, like it was holding something inside. My friend Lucas came over a week later to watch the game. Within minutes of walking into my apartment, he went pale. "What the hell is that?" he said, pointing to the corner of my living room. I turned. Nothing was there. We both decided he must have imagined it. But he left early, with a weird look on his face, mumbling something about having an early day tomorrow. A few days later, I was in a car accident, T-boned at an intersection I've crossed 100 times. The other driver swore he didn't see the light change. My car was totaled. I walked away with a broken wrist and some bruises. At the hospital, while waiting to be discharged, I reached into my jacket pocket out of habit and touched the locket. It was burning hot. That's when I knew something was wrong. I started researching, Googling things like Silver Locket death, looking for anything I could find. It didn't take long. The name Margaret Holloway kept popping up. She died in 1926, in a house fire. Tragic accident, they said. Candles, flammable curtains, an old structure. But the deeper I dug, the darker it got. Turns out Margaret wasn't the only one. Her mother died in a similar fire. So did her daughter, years later. All in different towns, different homes, all reportedly wearing the same silver locket. I found a newspaper clipping from the 40s. Woman found dead in bathtub, possible suicide. Locket found at scene. Another from the 70s. Man dies in sleep, heart failure. Locket in hand. Something inside told me the locket was cursed. A harbinger, a collector of grief. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Desperate, I contacted a local historian, someone who specialized in the occult history of the city. Her name was Grace. She met me in a quiet cafe and listened without judgment. When I showed her the locket, she didn't touch it, just stared. Grace said, "This belonged to Margaret Holloway. They say her soul never left. The locket binds her." I asked Grace if I could destroy it. "You can't destroy sorrow. You can only pass it along," she said. That chilled me more than anything else. She offered to take it from me, said she had the resources to contain it. I almost handed it over. Almost. But I couldn't. Something about it pulled at me, even as it terrified me. Like I was already too far gone. That night, I locked the locket in a box and placed it in my closet. The dreams came again. Margaret, burning, screaming, but not from pain, from loneliness, from betrayal. I woke up drenched in sweat, the smell of smoke in the air. It's been 3 weeks since then. I haven't worn the locket, haven't touched it, but it doesn't matter. The curse is patient. I see her now, in mirrors, in windows, in the spaces between streetlights when I walk home, always watching, waiting. I tried to throw it in the river yesterday. Drove all the way to the bridge, box in hand. But when I opened it, the locket was gone. This morning, it was on my kitchen table. Open. Inside was a faded photograph I'd never seen before. A woman in a Victorian dress, cradling a child. The woman in the photo stared at me, like she was telling me something with her eyes. Suddenly, I understood. The curse isn't just about death, it's about memory, sorrow, and legacy. The locket doesn't kill you. It makes you a part of its story. And in some twisted way, Margaret just didn't want to be forgotten. I'm writing this as a warning. If you ever find a silver locket with strange engravings, no matter how beautiful it looks, leave it. Don't touch it. Don't let it see you, because once it does, it never lets go. I used to love the smell of old books. There's something comforting about it. It literally smells like history itself. That's probably why I spent so much time in the older wings of the campus library. Most students avoided them. Too cold, too dusty, too far from the Wi-Fi. But for me, it was the perfect escape from the chaos of college life. That's where I found it. The journal. Tucked behind a row of crumbling encyclopedias in the anthropology section, spine wedged so tightly between two books that I had to tug to get it free. The leather cover was cracked and darkened by age, with no title, no author, just the faint smell of mildew and something else, something metallic. Curiosity got the better of me. I sat cross-legged on the floor right then and there and flipped it open. The first few pages were unremarkable. It read, "My name is Eliza. Today I went to the market." The tea was bitter again. I wish I could stop dreaming about the black door. The handwriting was elegant, but increasingly erratic. I turned the pages, and each one seemed to slip deeper into something darker, like a descent into a place the mind should never go. It read, "There's someone in the mirror that isn't me. She watches me sleep. I've started locking the door, but the knocking doesn't stop." I paused, heart thudding in my ears. Something about her words, it felt like they were whispering into my soul, and that unsettling familiarity, it gnawed at my mind. You see, I'd been hearing things lately. Knocks on my dorm wall at odd hours, cold drafts in a sealed room. My roommate claimed it was just pipes, but I'd seen the shadows, darting just out of view, always gone when I turned to look. The deeper I got into her journal, the harder it became to stop. Eliza wasn't just unraveling, she was fighting something. Something that had wormed its way into her life, unseen but ever present. She wrote, "It's not a shadow, it's a shape. It speaks without sound. I wake with bruises I can't explain." By the time I reached the final entry, my hands were trembling. She wrote, "If you're reading this, it knows you now. It follows the words like a trail. I shouldn't have written them. I shouldn't have let it in. Please, burn this book. Don't finish it. Please." I slammed the journal shut. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not just because of the words, but because of what followed me home. The lights in my room flickered as soon as I stepped inside. My reflection in the window lingered a second too long after I moved. And the knocking, it didn't come from the walls anymore. It came from inside the closet. I left the journal in my backpack, zipped away, as if that could contain it. But it didn't help. My dreams twisted into visions, and I saw her, Eliza, standing in a room made of mirrors, all of them cracked. She whispered, "You see it too now, don't you?" The next morning, I returned to the library with a plan. I'd bring it back, leave it exactly where I found it. Maybe that would undo whatever I'd triggered. But the aisle was gone. I wandered in circles for what felt like an hour, past shelves I'd never seen before. When I finally found the anthropology section again, the space behind the encyclopedias was empty. No trace of where the journal had been. And then my phone buzzed, a notification, new voice memo saved, but I hadn't recorded anything. Hands shaking, I pressed play. At first, just static. Then, a whisper. A woman's voice said, "My name is Eliza, and now you've taken my place." The phone slipped from my hands. I haven't slept since. The journal still finds its way back to me. In dreams, in thoughts, sometimes in places I'm sure I didn't leave it. Once, I found it on my pillow, open to the page with my name scrawled in the margins. I never wrote it there. I've tried to destroy it. Fire, water, even tearing it apart. But no matter what I do, it comes back. A little more frayed, a little more desperate. And with it, so does she. She stands at the edge of my vision now, a woman with hollow eyes and cracked lips, mouthing words I can't hear but feel deep in my bones. The more I ignore her, the closer she gets. I think the journal was never meant to be read. It was meant to be continued. So if you ever find a worn leather journal with yellowed pages and frantic writing, don't open it, because it's not just a story, it's a trap. And the moment you start reading, it starts writing you. I wasn't planning to stop at the thrift store that day. I'd taken Tommy out for ice cream, just a father-son thing, and we passed the place on the way back to the car. He tugged at my sleeve, eyes wide as he pointed at the display window filled with old books, lamps, and forgotten toys. "Can we go in, Dad? Just for a minute?" I said yes. Of course I did. We wandered through dusty aisles and faded furniture. The whole place smelled like time, musty and still. That's when Tommy found the bear. It sat on a low shelf, half slumped between a broken jack-in-the-box and a cracked ceramic clown. Worn brown fur, one ear missing, one eye replaced by a button, a ragged red ribbon around its neck. "Can I have him?" I almost said no. The thing gave me the creeps. But then I saw the way he cradled it in his arms, like it was already his. "Sure," I said. "What's his name?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Mr. Cuddles." I paid $2, and we left with the bear tucked under Tommy's arm. That night was the first time I heard the whispers. I'd just gone to bed when I heard faint murmuring through the baby monitor we still used in his room. At first, I thought he was talking in his sleep, but it didn't sound like Tommy. It sounded older, dark. I crept down the hall and opened his door. He was sound asleep, Mr. Cuddles tucked under one arm. I chalked it up to my imagination and went back to bed. But the next night, the same thing happened. Then the shadows started. I'd find Tommy's closet door open when I knew I'd shut it. Lights flickering, cold drafts with no source. Once, I walked past his room and caught a glimpse of movement, something small darting behind the rocking chair. When I turned on the light, there was nothing, except Mr. Cuddles, sitting upright on the chair, staring at the door. I started to feel watched, not just in Tommy's room, but everywhere, in the kitchen, in the shower, like someone or something was right behind me, always just out of sight. Tommy began having nightmares. He'd wake up crying, clutching the bear so tightly his knuckles turned white. "He's sad," he whispered one night. "He misses his boy." "Who?" I asked, heart racing. "Liam," he said. "That's what he told me." "Mr. Cuddles said I'm not Liam, but I can help." "Help how?" Tommy just stared past me, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I decided to return to the thrift store. The woman behind the counter recognized me. When I asked about the bear, her face went pale. She said, That bear came from a house fire. The family donated a bunch of stuff afterward. A little boy, Liam, died in his sleep. The bear was in perfect condition, even though the room was burned to ash. People said it was cursed. We tried throwing it away, but it kept turning back up, on the shelf or in the window. The woman said she remembered when I bought it, and that she'd wanted to tell me right there and then, but she couldn't. She looked guilty and ashamed. My stomach dropped. That night, I tried to take the bear from Tommy's bed while he slept. His eyes flew open. Tommy said, "Don't. You'll make him angry." "I need to get rid of it, Tommy," I whispered. Tommy said, "He doesn't want to hurt us. He just doesn't want to be alone again." I threw the bear in the trash the next morning. When I came home from work, he was back, sitting on Tommy's bed like he'd never left. I burned it that night, doused it in lighter fluid, and watched it turn to ash behind the shed. 2 days later, Tommy came to breakfast with Mr. Cuddles in his arms. Tommy said, "I told you, he always comes back." I don't know what Mr. Cuddles is, a spirit, a grief echo. All I know is he chose my son, and he's not letting go. We've moved since then, 3 towns away, different school, new house. But every night, the same bear lies next to my son, head resting on the pillow, button eye gleaming in the dark. Tommy sleeps soundly now, but sometimes I swear I hear 2 sets of breathing in his room. And late at night, I hear whispers, not to Tommy, to me, saying, "Don't take him from me again."